Friday, September 16th. I'm normally not trading on Fridays, but it is the end of my vacation, 2 week vacation. Decided to give myself one extra day just to. I didn't trade the whole day, but wanted the option to trade. Keep in mind, today was quad witching, right? And it was also equity future rollover week, the end of the week. But generally, those two things are going to result in basically trappy action. So our when we first go into the day, whenever you have something like OPEX, here, let me show you on the candlestick chart since that's what everyone's familiar with. And we're going to jump to the algo to learn about how to use that to time your moves. But if we were coming into today, what we saw is an overnight gap after some bad economic news. And what we'll see is we traded with like a grind lower. This is something that's been relatively new to me. The grind lower. I was used to the grind higher for many years, but we haven't really seen grind lower as far as I can remember since I started trading in 2016 until this year. This is the first time where this has been like a like you'd see it, but it was usually like in the form of a pullback, and then you'd get a rip higher. And so I've been struggling. I'm getting better at it now with the help of the algo, but I have been struggling with identifying that this and this and this and this, right? These little turns here are not necessarily moves back or moves that will break out, right? Because if you take this exact chart and you flip it over, right? So if you have buying that's grinding higher, you could for instance, like, well, here we can just say, let's say we're selling, right? Well, when you see this come up, if you know it's bearish, it's obvious now when you look at it, right? But now if I wait for this pullback and I short here, like, will this one break? Usually, right? Will this one break? Eventually, is the way to think about it. So what you tend to get is a push down, a significant pullback, and then grind lower until you break this one, and then test below, pull back, grind lower, right? Break this one, test behind, and then this time they did a pretty big retrace, but you'll see that this retrace couldn't close above the previous resistance, and so the result is go back to this area here that was pre-negotiated here, try to bounce off that, and you can kind of see the structure here. In retrospect, it looks kind of obvious that that's just a retrace, but where I was struggling, and still sometimes do, is remembering that this here gives us the direction of momentum, and so you shouldn't get too zoomed in on one of these moves and think, when you see something like this, right? Like, let's say you took a long here, because we're doing a lot of scalping, so a lot of times we're just taking trades trying to get 10 to 15 points in NQ. So, like, I'm just as happy longing a bear market as I am shorting, but there is a key difference with trading when you're trading with the trend versus against the trend, and that is that when you're not trading with the momentum of the higher time frame, you don't need to hold runners, right? You are simply mean reversion trading. When you are trading with the trend of the higher time frame, you can continue to trade mean reversion, right? Like, if this is the mean at the voodoo range level and we go too high, I can sell it to get to the mean, or I can buy it to get to the mean. You can still trade with the trend in mean reversion, but the difference is that when you make these breakouts and you get a pullback, that next opportunity, so if it sets up right here with a trap, that next opportunity, we need to hold runners, right, to the short side. And where I was messing up is I've been so used to the exact opposite that I see this and I'm like, oh, there's some excess. We might rip up here, and I'm already thinking about retracing this move, and that is a huge, huge, huge leak, right? You're not going to get this kind of action very often where it does that and then oh shit and then V's back up from here, right? You're not going to get this barely as often as we think we will. If you, especially if you've only been trading in the last couple of years, like I started in 2016, so I've been through like a little bit of what I'd call like a choppy bear market, but it was like a very brief bear market. And I obviously traded through the couple months bear market of the COVID crash, but that's quite a bit different because buying the dip eventually worked anyway, right? But if you're just if your strategy is I want to be long this market for one reason or another because I think that resistances all break eventually. If that even if you don't think that's you're thinking, but if that's actually how you think when you trade, is that this resistance might break, which like I said, it's we all do it, right? We get like addicted to that experience of getting that breakout working for us, and we just expect that every time it does it, it's gonna do it. You're gonna have a lot of problems because you'll see with this resistance, it's unlikely to break here. Why? Because there are buyers trapped up here, right? These guys here got trapped by this gap, and if they didn't get out of their position, they're going to get out now, right? Or if they sold this successfully and took profits as we came back up, guess what they're going to do when we come back to that area? They're going to sell it again and again and again and again, and because they're in control, there's really no reason to think that you're long here, right? I'm okay buying here as long as I am targeting no higher than this here. The only runners I should be holding is to the resistance. I don't need to catch the V, right? When it V's, I am not in the market, and I'm okay with that. On the but sometimes you do catch it, and today I caught the retrace to the upside, and I'm going to show you how I saw it coming. Right when we get there, I want to kind of take it step by step because otherwise it's sort of unfair. But I'm going to try to go through what I just wanted to show you though, because this has something to do with what happened today, because this is almost like a fractal, right, of what we saw during the regular trading hours. The important piece here is to identify first momentum, and then even when the market stops rotating like this is very difficult trading for me personally. This kind of action it sucks. I lose a lot of money when that happens if I'm not careful and I overtrade this. I can make a lot of mistakes, but it is tradable. You just have to adjust and stop holding runners, right? Unless you're trading with the trend. But then once you get these rotations back in the market, things are a lot easier to trade. And now you can see that here we did break this. And so this is an example here of a time when our algo showed us you can start holding runners to the upside now. And I'll show you what that is. And then we don't trade the open, but we had a similar setup here, which basically suggested that since we trapped someone down here, that we might be open to breaking this. You don't know that it's going to be the very next time, right? This time it took 2 tries. So if you would have bought here, held runners, you might have trailed out and then saw it go. That happens. But I thought the really good one that I saw came out of the trap here. But if you look at this, it's a very, here, I'll do it with this. It is a very similar situation to this. This. And this is actually extremely similar, just on different time frames. It's a fractal, right? So what happens is you have grind lower, test below low, find buyers, then aggressively, see how that increase of selling volume comes in? They try to push it down, but they can't break that low, and then they get trapped. And so now all of a sudden you can target above this, whereas previously any scalps you're taking in here, you should be taking profits before resistance. Whereas when this happens, you can start targeting the next resistance. I probably wouldn't get it all the way back up to the voodoo range level because I'm just not bullish here, right? But like that's okay. You don't have to get the end, right? This is the same exact thing. If you look, we have grind, but we have momentum primarily to the downside, right? They take out the low with a little bit of capitulation here. Not a lot, less than average, but a little bit of a push. They did take out the low, right? They come back up. They try to continue pushing down, and they just get absorbed here. They can't get anything going, and they get trapped right there. Right, all of a sudden, sellers are trapped on this candle, and so once that candle happened, I said that most likely what they're going to do is they're going to target this guy. And so I had 915 because of the voodoo range level as my primary target. I ended up getting out a little bit before that because with these trailing drawdown accounts, it's the prop accounts. It's really difficult to like have any logic for holding through really big pullbacks. And so I was long in here. I'll show you. And actually was able to add in this, and then took profits as we came up here. And when we tapped 11,900 and then started pulling back, I was like, you know what? I'm sure we're gonna get here. Pretty sure we're gonna get here. But what if we're reacting to this level? Is what I saw, right? What if we're reacting to that 1900 that we clearly found interesting before? And while I do trust that my voodoo range levels are useful, you can't just like blindly get stuck thinking that like a exact level is going to get touched. That leads to drawdowns, in my opinion. Instead, you have to think about these things like zones. So for instance, this is the overnight zone where most everybody who got the best short was getting short, so their stop probably goes above some of these wicks. We don't know which one, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the top one. It doesn't always make it to the top. But when this one stopped at 915, 119.15, that right at the voodoo range level, I assumed that we were probably going to break this. But when we got stuck here, I got a little freaked out because I was just like, what if we don't do it right away? We have to come back. And so I ended up taking profits into 11,900. 11,900. And then it spiked up a couple more times. And there was another setup to get long after it confirmed here. And we got a push into the close. This was actually, if you've traded the close, this was actually kind of tricky. I'll show you. So anyway, that's what it looked like on the candlestick chart. But what I really wanted to point out was, and it's very easy to see on the algo too, but on the candlestick chart, you can easily tell once you get used to knowing what you're looking for. But if you think about the market in phases, that really helps me decide what strategy I want to use, what pattern on the algo I want to be looking for my best trades. For instance, when we are grinding slowly, I don't want to be taking momentum trades. And when we are rotating in huge like moves like this, like really big, long 50 plus rotations, you could technically trade momentum into resistance, but you don't, in my opinion, you don't want to be holding through resistance. So I would not necessarily get this, right? I would have taken profit here if I got long here. That's just the way I trade. I don't worry about this, right? But once you've gotten a momentum shift, which basically means you trapped somebody on the other side, which happens here, right? Is when you've trapped this guy, right? Confirm trapped. Now I can start holding runners and taking momentum trades, and I don't want to take the short trades at all. I'm just going to start ignoring the shorts. Now, that's not how everyone trades, right? Some people will still trade the shorts and the longs, and just scalp their way through this. And there are short trades here that set up and you can take them. I just ignore them. Or I take profits on my longs and then try to get back in with momentum. So what you're going to see is that when we review this and I point out some of the trade setups that I saw, or maybe that I didn't see but I should have, you're going to see that they come in a couple, like basically 2 or 3 different like types. You have the trap trades, which generally produce a big push like this or like this. Those are the best when it comes to win rate. When they set up, they at least pay me 10 points really often, and sometimes they give me 50 plus, right? So those trap trades are really good. And you can also use those during sideways, choppy, expanding negotiation like this. The trap trades are primarily what I'm doing there. When it's choppy like this, the only choice is either to not trade or to zoom into a smaller time frame and try to play like mean reversion trades, or to only trade the side with momentum but wait for the pullback. So you ignore the longs and you take the shorts and then you hold runners. But those runners are going to take a lot of heat in this grind. So it's sometimes better just to not trade this, right? But then the other, a totally different type of setup is the momentum trades, where once you know which way you're going and you're moving that way with momentum, increasing volume, right? You can now start buying dips, right? Or here you can start selling rips because there's some momentum here too. And those trades are going to look totally different, right? The patterns are going to be almost opposite of the mean reversion trades where you're taking both sides. And that's very confusing for a lot of people. And so what a lot of people do is they just pick one. They're like, I trade mean reversion really well. I'm just going to learn those setups and just watch for those. And I know when they work and I know when not to do it. And so when they see this, they just stop trading, right? Straight up, they just don't trade. Straight down, they just don't trade. But if it's rotating, and then really tight, they don't trade. But if it's rotating, they can put big size on these traps, right? And mean revert down to the middle here. That's your target, and you're just trying to get long from down here and short from up here until they trap somebody, and then you stop, right? When you no longer rotate here. And you're not even worried about this trade. If you catch it, great, but if you miss it, you're not going to try to chase it because you're just a mean reversion trader. The opposite of that is someone who doesn't trade this and avoids this kind of action, right? Once it starts doing this, you just step away, but you make your money here and here. So if that's how you want to trade, you need to focus on the momentum trades, which they still exist in the algo, but that's not the way my coach trades, and it's not the highest, those trades are not the highest odds. And what you're going to find is that the mean reversion trades often look like failed momentum trades. So if you know what you're looking for, and then vice versa too. So if you know what you're looking for, whether or not you're a momentum trader or a mean reversion trader, and you want to start adding to your mix, let's say you've been trading momentum for a long time, you're doing okay, but you'd really like to know what to do when it does this, right? And you keep on getting stopped out, and you want to fix that, but you still want to learn to trade this, not just walk away. Well, the first thing you should probably do is take a look at what does your favorite momentum trade look like when it stops out, right? When it doesn't work, what happens? Because there might be an edge there to trade mean reversion when that trade doesn't work. So what we're going to see on the algo is a lot of times the setups we're going to use actually have, they're actually a different trade pattern that has failed. And that's what creates the trade that I'm taking, right? Now, I know if you're new to the algo, there's like a lot of signals and colors and stuff like that. I don't want you to worry too much about that. Don't worry about what it all means, right? I will explain as we go along what you need to know to like analyze whether or not there's a trade or not. But it gets really confusing if you try to take it bar by bar and explain exactly what's happening. I can do that, and I've done it before, but I'm only going to do that when I have a trade to explain, because otherwise it's going to take forever. And so just know that all of the signals are based on information from the footprint, right? So we're looking at this, and then also the order flow, like the order book and the time and sales, right? So that's where and then structure. That's where we're getting all of these signals, right? And then the other thing to really pay attention to is the lines here, because these lines We have two type of lines. We have the red ones and the green ones. Those are generally targets for me, as well as setups for like, because that's where the stops generally go, where people, that's where liquidity is. So like if I'm trying to get long this, I want to wait for this to develop and then trap back into it to be able to get long. But you can see that this is not very long. This is not a long market, right? It's bearish. So instead, if I want to get short, well then what I want is I want to find a red line. I want to trade behind it like that. And I want to see a signal come off of that algo. That's the simplistic way to explain it, right? Pick your direction, pick your type of trade, look for the algo to tell you when that's happening. Rather than thinking about it like, okay, wait, what does triangle up mean? And what does purple triangle mean? And or purple diamond, right? If you get too stuck in that, you're going to overanalyze all this. And there's so many signals that you're going to get overwhelmed. So instead, just like break it down to what do I need to know? Well, I need to know my direction. I need to know my trade strategy, my style, and my momentum, or my mean reversion right now based on the conditions or your rules. And then you need to know, where do I want to trade? And so the answer to that question, where do I want to trade, has to do with all of the lines on the chart. And I know there's a lot, right? But remember that when you're looking at this, we're not looking at a big picture. We're just looking at like one bar at a time. So like if this was us, we'd be just looking at this, right? And what we have to ask is, if we are looking to sell, which is what we would do here, we'd ask, where is the nearest apex or power bar, these little flags, the purple flags, that produce a extension line, right? These are red and the ones at the bottom are green. And then the other thing we want to look at, that would be for a trap type setup, right? Like if I know that it's going down and I'm trying to get short on a pullback. Whereas if I'm looking for a mean reversion trade, what matters more than that are these blue lines here and here, and then this midline here. There's also some smaller lines here that just kind of designate this into quarters. So there's the upper quartile, there's these two middle quartiles, and then the bottom quartile, right? So any trade entry or bar inside this lower quartile is the kind of like this, is the kind of place where I could take a mean reversion trade if I am bullish, right? The and now if I only need 10 or 15 points, I can be bullish here, right? I don't have to be bullish on the bigger time frame to take that mean reversion trade, but that confuses a lot of people because they're like, wait, that's not bullish. And so if you see this and you're like, I can't buy this, that's cool, right? Just skip it and wait for the short to set up. And thankfully, like I said, I know it's a lot of lines, but with the algo, you can just ignore the green line and the lower blue one and look for red lines and the upper blue one, right? So like here, so let's say we wanted to ignore longs because we see this big drop. We see the background's purple, which is a sign of momentum to the downside. And so we're like, you know what? I don't want to risk it. I'm trying to like qualify prop account or whatever. I see that maybe I've got a signal here to get long, but my target would only be right here where these lines interact. So let's just skip it and see if I get a short instead, right? That's logical. The hard part is if you get stuck on saying like, okay, I want to get short, and then you see a short signal, which is this, right? This colored bar, and you get short, you're going to have a problem. Let me get rid of these extra lines. You're going to have a problem because you don't have location here, right? You are down at the bottom where you should be getting long if you're bullish. If you want to get short, you have to wait till you get above this red line, or at least trade above it, or up to this blue line, or at least this top quartile. And there's very rarely a reason why we should be getting short from anywhere but there. The only exception is when you are trading down with impulse moves and you're selling breakdowns, basically, or very, very brief pullbacks into location, right? That's the only time when you break that rule. But in general, this is where we want to get short. Wherever the algo puts these red lines and this blue line, especially where they interact, or at least this top quartile, is really, you could just wait until you get there. Just because the market goes there doesn't mean you have to sell it. But what you can see that this orange bar, which is a bearish sign of absorption, is a much better entry location-wise than this orange bar, right? And the result of that means you can put your stop right above the bar and short it and get a nice rollover. right? Now, is it going to continue and close down here? I don't know, right? The algo would not tell me that. I mean, it would be cool if it did, but it doesn't. The only thing you could do is you could go to a higher time frame, which is what I have over here, and analyze whether or not you have it set up here. Well, on the higher time frame, we're clearly bearish, right? This is an 80 tick Renko chart, whereas this is a 24 tick. And again, apologize for all the colors. But, whoops, I didn't want to do that. But this is an 80 tick, so it's a really big time frame. It takes a lot of points to print one of these bars. And you can see we're clearly bearish here. And then we've gotten a sign of bearish momentum where we've tried to absorb some sellers with a lot of volume, which is what this says. And then we ran into this lower blue line where you would expect buyers to start getting aggressive. And instead, they reversed it with aggression, right? Back to the downside. So if you're going to sell a breakdown, this is one of the ones that, like, if you must short in the hole, right? If like you're like, I just have to, right? I don't like doing it personally, but if you just love shorting in the hole, you could just wait for one of these momentum signals and don't short any of this, but short this one, and your win rate's going to go up, right? Now, is it going to go way down? You don't know. You'd have to go to the next highest time frame, right? But here, if you just shorted, if you just shorted this, right, on the smaller time frame, because I don't think you want a 40-point stop. That would be kind of crazy, right? So instead, if you just looked for this general area, 91, right? If you saw that on the higher time frame, you're like, okay, if we can get to 91, I'd like to short that, right? So once you get up, did I pass it? Oh, it's back here. Once I get up there to 91, am I wrong? Is it not 91? No, 91. I'm right. Okay, good. So yeah. I see. So this actually signaled before 91. That's all. So it got down to 91 here, right? Broke down past 91. There was no setup here, so you just do nothing. You wait for the pullback, right? Like I said, you need to get past the red line and preferably in here. So I'm not taking this one, even though the higher time frame looks pretty good. I'd have to put my stop way up here above these red lines. I don't want to do that because I don't know if it's going to go any further than this, and I want one-to-one risk reward. So I wait, accepting that I might miss the trade, but then that one's good, right? I get the signal on a time frame that I'm willing to risk on, right? Because now I can enter here at 2150 instead of 91, but my stop is still like 37. Like, that's a lot more manageable. I can take a lot bigger size trading this. But if I can reference and wait for the potential setup on the higher time frame, it will help me. Now, sometimes I'll miss moves, but it'll make the likelihood of getting a good push here much better, and it'll probably mean the continuation's a little more likely to happen. It's obviously not going to happen every time, but here you get some pretty good continuation here, So I mean, that's pretty good risk reward. But like I said, that's overnight, and it was very grindy overnight. So I think it's okay too just to not trade it. But once it starts to get grinded like this, what I'm learning is pick a direction and just, even if you're going to trade mean reversion, just choose the direction that they're grinding, right? And a really easy way to see what direction they're grinding, if you don't understand all the colors and stuff like that, that's fine. Like all the indicators, you don't honestly you don't need all that. If you have the channel, right, and you just look at whether or not you're trading at the bottom or the top of the channel, and whether or not, see this yellow line, that's where the volume point of control is of all the bars. If they're having a hard time holding price and volume up here, we're not bullish, right? And if you're grinding, you definitely don't want to be buying. Because every time you can get a buy signal here, and then you want to be out by the time they hit the midpoint. So it's like, because you're not really able to hold above the midpoint. So there's no reason to hold runners if you're buying. And if you can't get your signal until you get to this blue line here, well, that's your trade. So why take it, right? Instead, what we should be doing is saying, I want to get short once we break a red line and or get into this blue line, right? And so that is your ideal short. If you miss that short and you start to see increased volume like this, right? See how before we had this much selling, and now all of a sudden we have a huge shit ton of selling. Well, now I can start looking and seeing if we can find a momentum trade, right? So I wouldn't trade momentum when we have low volume like this. I wouldn't do it. And when we're grinding and we're not able to really stay underneath or over if most of the volume and the price is inside of the channel, that is ATR based channel, right? So if the average true range is like, if we're trading within that average true range, like band, like I don't really want to be trading momentum trades. But once we start pushing under it, like, yeah, you'll be shorting low, but that's the only time when I would really think about taking momentum trades. I don't see any really obvious ones here, but I will show you that. Well, here's one. So triangle up, followed by purple diamond. It's the same one here, right? As well as pink bar, orange bar. So this is already a trap trade, but if it was just triangle up, purple diamond, that's a good momentum trade as long as you're trading it with the direction of the momentum. Don't trade that the opposite way. See, the opposite of that is the red triangle down followed by a blue diamond. That's just the inverse of white triangle up, purple diamond. And like I said, I know it's a lot of colors, but you get used to it. You just learn one at a time, one pattern at a time. So you don't want to take this one because we're not bullish. But what you'll see later is when it's bullish, this one will work, and this one, this pattern, 2-bar combination will fail. But when you're bearish, this one will work, and this one will fail. So anyway, I don't see a whole lot else to do here. It was a pretty boring night, right? Okay, here's another momentum trade, but it's not in a perfect location. So triangle up, purple bar down. See how it doesn't break this red? And it's not up in the upper quartile here. It's not an ideal trade. You might not get 1-to-1, but you do get a little extension, right? And we're like, the thing that I'm learning here is I need to, when it's grinding like this, I need to stop looking for the reversal. That is the lesson that I've learned in the last month or so, is I'm so focused on trying to get those big moves that I'm missing these momentum trades, and I'm looking for the big move higher when it just doesn't come very often, right? And so if you buy this and you buy this and you buy this, like that's fine if you're targeting the midpoint, but if you're holding runners trying to get to this side, you are breaking even at best. Buying, taking some off, getting stopped out of your runners, buying, taking some off, getting stopped out of your runners. You're gonna grind your way, like you're gonna grind yourself to death with fees, and you're just not gonna make. You're gonna miss the big move anyway in the opposite direction. And you're gonna get frustrated. So it might be different than what like my coach does, right? Which is just like trade both directions no matter what, wherever there's a trade, take it. Like that's there's nothing wrong with that, but it's you have to be it for some of you, and including me, I'm finding that I would rather just focus on the shorts here and wait for the long to develop and miss the first one, right? Like I'm okay if I don't buy this and I miss that little long. I'm okay with that because I probably would have held runners and tried to get it up to these red lines and failed with those runners. So I need to be okay just like accepting that I'm probably not going to catch the V reversal, and just to focus on selling those traps and momentum trades, right? So let's see. So this is another momentum entry. Remember, your stop goes up here. Let's see if that one works. Again, the momentum's pretty low, right? So it might not. It does. It works. Oh, and then here's an add right here. Triangle up, diamond down, add to short, right? And again, you're not going to get 100 points on all these, right? You're going to get a push sometimes, but that is good. If you get beyond the edge of this radar here and you start pushing down, you want to tightly trail your stop, right? And so here in the past, what I'd been doing is thinking, okay, now it's time to buy, right? Because I'm starting to get algos on the other side after a big push down. But what I'm also learning is that I don't, which is related to the other thing, is that I don't need to be first, and it's okay if I miss one. So instead of just buying this blindly and like maybe not like getting more than 10 points, because it's probably not going to break out here, instead I will let this one go now. is what I'm trying, unless it sets up a very certain way. I'm letting this one go, and then once I get a triangle up, what I'm doing here is I'm drawing the DVP from the last power bar, see that? Or the last wave. And I'm noting that's the draw volume. I'm drawing the volume profile, and I'm noting where most of the volume is, the volume point of control for that drop, right? Once I've identified that, which at this case, that drop here came, the most of the volume shot off at 875, 11,875. So therefore, I can't get long, right? I can't get long unless I have a signal of aggression above this, right? It's fine if it goes above it, comes back and hits it and bounces. That's cool. I can long that. But I'm not going to long this. I'm not going to long anything in here, right? Because we have not established control above this volume build. So even though this looks like it might turn around, and my like degen like retail mind is like, oh, here comes the big V like the V reversal, right? And I've got all these signals saying buyers, 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 right? I have to remember that momentum on the higher time frame is clearly going down. That's why I've got all this purple here, right? It's clearly bearish. And so even though there's a sign that someone's buying here, they might just be taking profits because they've been short all night, right? So I don't have to buy the first chance. I can wait for that first thing to wave to develop, and instead focus on the shorts and look at this as an opportunity to get short if I break a pivot and get a good price, right? So if I can get up here at the blue line, or if I can break a red line. So I'm not trading this. It's a little bit too aggressive to trade into the lows, and you just end up chopping around it. Now here, look, this one is so close to breaking this, right? I actually took this trade, and I probably shouldn't have. I talked to my coach about this, and he said, nope, that's not good enough. You need to actually establish volume up here, and the fact that it's pink should scare you away even more, which is interesting. So I bought that. I got 10 points on it, and I held a runner, and the runner stopped, right? So I shouldn't have even been thinking about longs at this point, because we're not establishing above this level. So let me erase the volume profile. I know it's a lot to look at, but I marked the volume point of control of this down bar, this down wave, as 11,875, and every time we try to test above that, we're not getting any positive responses, right? So what I'm saying is all of this looks pretty bearish, right? It doesn't make it an immediate sell, but I have to stop thinking that I need to buy every trigger, right, when I see this. That is not something you want to be buying. And so instead, even though I don't have any reason to short this right here, I need to not buy them. Now this one also doesn't quite make it to the point of control. So now what I see is they are actually chopping in the zone, right? Once I identify they are chopping, I can move down to the smaller time frame, and I can start scalping this. And this is something I've talked to my coach about quite a bit, and it does work. But you need to adjust your profit-taking targeting and your stop so that you don't lose too much when you're wrong. But you can see here, all of a sudden, while it looks like it's just chopping inside of the bottom half of this, these lines here, this blue channel, right? And it doesn't look like it's very tradable, and I agree with that. On the time frame we're usually trading, on the smaller time frame, it's actually sweeping back and forth across the whole channel, right? And that looks a lot more tradable. You could short up here and buy down here as long as it keeps doing that. Now, I would be okay avoiding them buying because I know that it's bearish on the higher time frame. So while this is technically a decent trap here because we traded under a green line, came back and got a sign of aggression, you could take this for 10 points, but most of the time they're not going to break this and hold above it. So you can take that, but you take profits here, or if you're not going to take all your profits here, you skip this one and you wait for the short to set up, right? Now the result of skipping that means you miss or exiting all means you miss this big move. I actually caught this big move. I'm just pretty proud of myself, but upon reanalyzing it, I realized, you know what? There is no great reason here to think that anyone's trapped until you get above this sign of aggression, right? And that did not happen here yet. So what I should have done is either not done anything here or jumped down to the smaller time frame, maybe traded a scalp here, but primarily waited to see what they do when they trap this aggressive seller here, because this is your opportunity. If this is the first time you could actually get a long momentum trade, but you can see here it did not, there's no signals here on the 16 tick, and there's no signals here, right? It just ripped. So if you didn't buy where I bought, you'd have no real reason to get long here, unless you wanted to buy a triangle, but that's pretty risky when it's in the middle of the channel here, right? How do you know it's not? Look at all these times when that triangle just gets stuffed, right? We were just saying that as long as it's bearish, if you get a triangle followed by a algo, usually that top of that bar is not going to get broken right away, right? If you get an algo after a triangle up and it's bearish, that high is not going to get broken right away. Same thing. Well, now look what happens. Like, you get a triangle up and there's just no algo and it immediately breaks, right? So this is the sign to stop aggressively selling and to assume that now we're going to go into at least some kind of a neutral mode, if not bullish. And you can see it down here too if you're watching all of these momentum indicators, right? Like we're starting to get higher lows and we're starting to curl up. So there's other ways to see this without all the algos, but the important thing is you can identify at maybe not early, but by this point, you can't just sell because you're going higher. That is so important, and it'll save you a lot of money if you can stop seeing this as a sell opportunity and see the difference between this and this, right? And I know that, like I said, lots of symbols and stuff like that, but just looking at the structure where see, this is our aggressive trader here, and we could not develop any aggression to the upside. Any volume, any price up there was sold, right? Totally opposite here, where we have the exact same signal, we have the exact same signal, too many damn lines. We have the exact same signal here of an aggressive trader, and his high gets tested and then broken, right? So as soon as that happens, we should be backing off. And so the easiest way to say this is once you have especially multiple pivots here, if we break above there and continue higher, or we break above there, test back, and then go higher, stop fighting that direction, right? Don't short. And when can you short again? You can short again when you see a mean reversion opportunity after some movement in both directions. That's my rule. So I am not usually going to sell this, even though it's at a level that I identified as a likely sell point, and there's clearly a signal here. I am now not selling this for the same reason why I'm not buying this. It's just too aggressive, and the times it fails, I end up making mistakes and missing more trades. So while I believe this works, yeah, it does just work right away. And the reason it works is because on the higher time frame, it was clearly bearish, and we were at a location, right? So if you're going to make an exception for the rule of I don't want to be aggressive, well, then if you're going to make an exception, make that exception for when the aggression is, when everybody else is being aggressive as well, right? Only be aggressive when everybody else has been aggressive. Don't be aggressive in the face of someone fighting you, right? Wait until you've got a higher time frame confirmation with people aggressively shorting that location. And so here, a simple strategy would be once you see them reject off this midpoint, you can say, okay, from now on, if I get any short signal that interacts with this blue line like this or this, I'm just going to short it because it makes sense as long as I get it on the smaller time frame, right? Which would get you short here. And I guess that's probably it. You might have ended up shorting. No, there's no signal here. But if there was a signal here, you might have gotten caught. But that would give you this one, right? That's how you get this, how you would know to be aggressive with it. Or you just have to take every one, right? In which case, you'd short this, and then you'd short this too. So I think it's important to understand that Just because there's a signal there doesn't mean everybody's selling it. Everyone has their own risk tolerance of how aggressive they're going to be. But if I was going to make an exception for the rule of don't fight that first impulse, it's going to be when everything's lined up location-wise and I'm in confluence with the higher time frame trend, right? Lower lows, and even though this is a higher high, on the higher time frame, it was not a higher high, right? So as long as I got that higher time frame trading with me, I might want to take some risks here. And of course, my stop still goes right here, right? And the idea here is I'm probably going to get back to the midpoint, if not back to this blue line. And certainly the green line is a good place to take profits, always. So here it didn't quite hit the green line, which is pretty frustrating, right? But you just have to hold, in my opinion, until it does. So right there, you'd get out, right? And in the meantime, you'd see that they're starting to make higher highs and higher lows, but then here they consolidated, right? There's not really it doesn't look like there's a setup here, but if you use this trick, because now this is the high, you can see that that point of control interact. Oh, it didn't quite reach it. Same exact thing as over here. So that's not a short. We just wait. It just didn't trigger, right? Didn't quite reach it on this time frame. Okay, so it does look bearish though, right? Like if you took this, you'd stay short, but I don't have a great reason for shorting this, unfortunately. It missed it by ticks, right? So, and my coach said, nope, like that, the rule's the rule, leave the rule as it is. So the rule is it's got to interact with POC and it missed it by like 2 ticks. So I guess I'm not supposed to short that. Maybe I can short it when it's the bar down. I'll have to look at that. But anyway, here's another momentum trade, right? Green bar followed by orange bar. So if you're bearish, and it does look bearish, you can take this to the next green line. So let's see if it makes it to the green line. Yep. So then I wasn't trading at this point, but you could cover right here, right? But I would not reverse here. There's really no reason to buy it. Okay, that's another momentum trade, right? As long as there's momentum, you can take triangle up, orange bar. The only problem is you're at the bottom of this channel, right? And so we might be grinding. So what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to go to the smaller time frame and look for a setup there, right? And in this case, the setup is we tested above the midpoint and then rejected with absorption. So it's not a high odd setup, but it's good enough. It's bearish in a bear trend, right? And then the actual setup is where I'm supposed to take it on the 24 tick. So this should go lower. Yep. Okay, now that's it. Once we get this, remember our primary target here is basically these green lines, and we didn't quite hit it, and then we had a pretty strong sign of aggression all of a sudden. So I'd probably start covering here because it's at the voodoo range level. Usually a pretty good idea. In this case, we get another sign of aggression. Triangle up, star down with the purple background. So usually this is a good time to get short or stay short, as long as you still think it's bearish. You can see here they fucked you and then went, right? So you'd have to re-enter here. That just happens, right? Sometimes that happens. And then they can't get anywhere. They get down to the green line, which is your target, and they start flattening out, right? So that's why you exit these targets. Then we got a lot of volume coming in. I'm still not buying this. Now there is a trap here, right? We had a star traded underneath it and it came back. So if I've got a reason to think that this is bullish, this is actually a good long. But as far as I can see, we're having a hard time even getting price past this midpoint, right? And the last time we got up here, it was way up here. So I'm not saying it can't go higher. It could go all the way up here. I think it does. But I am avoiding these now because I've done so well on the short side when it's bearish that I don't need to catch this, right? But it does do it, which is great. So if you still want to take that trap back in, you just got to wait for it to get underneath that green line, go sideways, and come back with a sign of aggression. It's a good trade. It's just better when you're trading with the trend, right? And in this case, I'd take most of my profits here and the rest of them right at the blue line, right there, right? And then right away I'm going back to short. Maybe not getting short, but thinking short, right? But notice here we got above this red line, but we closed a bar with the POC above it. So I'm not going to immediately short here because that's a sign that this might go higher. But I'm not going to stay long because I don't really have any reason to be long. And it goes a little bit higher and then turns around. You have a 3-bar combo here, but it's a great location, right? It would be better if we broke this red line. But that's a decent short. See that? Okay, and then here you have a sign of a buy scalp. But again, I would not be trading against the trend now, because I think that the next red line is way up here, and so the best case scenario is probably we get back to like the midpoint. So I'm not taking that anymore. See that? I'll get stuck on the midpoint. I would rather just wait. Now once I've gotten it, I can draw the DVP. Oops, I drew that wrong. And you'll see that this gets a little bit monotonous because it's just the same thing over and over again. I'm just trading my plan, right? I have certain conditions that have to happen for my trades to trigger. When they trigger, I take them as best I can, and when they don't trigger, I don't do anything. So we get a new low. I draw the DVP. As soon as we get the triangle there, now it's confirmed that it's way up here at 11,850. As you can see, I drew it in real life too. Okay, and so I want to be getting short if we can get up here. That's the thinking. The other thing I can do is once this prints here, this triangle, right? Now I can draw the DVP of the move up, which is this. And the DVP is also way at the high, right? So I would need I would need a short now that is under this down here. That's where I need the short. And there's just no signal here yet. That is a higher low with a sign of aggression coming back into an important area, right? It did not quite reach it, so I'm not supposed to buy it. I say not supposed to because a lot of times I will go ahead and buy this, but I have to have some kind of confirmation on a higher time frame that this is a good location. Otherwise, I'm not going to get past this red line, and that's not going to be worth my time, right? So you can see that the reason why I'm not supposed to take these when it doesn't actually interact with this is it usually takes more time or another push down before I can break these red lines. And so while I get my 10 points, and even just yesterday I was saying how that's a pretty good deal, the problem is I can't hold runners here. So it's okay to take it if you're just going to get all out at 10 points. But if you're not going to hold runners, you're going to miss all the times it goes 50 points. And so then I start thinking, well, is it even worth taking? Why don't I just wait for it to set up short in the exact same spot and take that? So this is a good short. Momentum's to the downside. We've been trading underneath the radar or staying primarily in the lower half, right? And then we have this point of control, this green line from before at 11,826.50 that told us that there was some volume in here. So that came from back here, right? Pretty sure. So if that's right, then that should be a short. Am I wrong? Is that a new number? I could be wrong. That might be something I left there. It would have to be this wave to the low. Nope, I was wrong. That's not a short. That must have been one from later that I just left down there on accident before I did the review. So my bad. I need a short up here. Oops. Here. Yeah, it needs to set up here. So there is just no short there. Oh wait, does it interact with this? It does. So you could take a continuation short here. If you did short that, your target is this green line here. Right? And you're shorting into the low of the day when we're trying to get back into this radar. So eventually this is going to fail, right? Right there. So it stops out. So, and plus, this is at the market open, which is always kind of a crazy time to play mean reversion because someone's going to take control and push, right? You might be right, but it's usually a little bit risky to trade in the first couple minutes of the open. So I would not personally have taken that. But technically, if you thought it was bearish and you tried to get up into this high volume area and it failed, you could try to short it. But you can see what happened is it sat right here at the bottom of the radar, and then it absorbed it and gave you a speed bar coming back up. So I personally wouldn't have been able to buy that, but it's a it's a stop sweep. See that? So now look, this location identified earlier interacts with this So if you took this short, you better take this one too. And that one pays beautifully, right? Your primary target is to get back to this last green line. And I know it's a lot of green and red lines, but if you're just looking at where you are right now, and you just look down and say, where's my next untested green line? You know exactly where you're supposed to be getting out of your trade, which is right there. And I don't know about you, but if you got short here and you got out here, I'd be pretty happy, right? Now here we push down to a new low. See that? So now we're gonna take this. We're gonna take this DVP, and we're gonna redraw because we've gone to a new low. And then it actually doesn't end until here. I can see the wave down here ends right there, right? Notice we did not quite break this. Oh yes, we did. We broke it, and we had less volume this time. So that is a sign right here. This lower volume, even though it's lower price, is a sign that we might be consolidating. It's a divergent low, right? And so this is one of the few times where you might want to start looking for traps to the upside. So I might not buy this, but it's actually a pretty good place to buy because of where, see how all the volume is down here? And we went lower than that and came right back. So that's actually a really high odds trade. It's just hard to execute. But that works a lot. It'll get you 10 to 15 points a lot, right? And then generally once these work, I'm not going to push hard to the downside, even though now I'm going to miss an occasional scalp. This often creates another long opportunity, right? Now there's no algo here, so there's nothing to do. And then we get a short momentum entry if we want to take it. Again, once I see this trap back in and then test, I'm kind of expecting that since we got this like perfect poor low here basically, I'm expecting this to get swept out and then go higher a lot of the time. So I might skip this momentum trade. It's just too far down. I like trading from up here, from the red lines or the blue line. I don't really want to trade down here. It's too close to the low. See that? This is what ends up happening. But look, now you've got a momentum trade to the upside and a trap. So you got triangle down, blue diamond. You also trapped underneath the low and came back with a star. This is the first long that I'm confident taking, especially since it interacts with this POC, right, of the down wave from before. Now, technically, we could move this once again. Once again, we could move it to be this. But you can still see it's still interacting in the right place, right? So that becomes a really good long. And again, when I say good, I mean it's probably going to work for 10 to 12 points. Maybe more, right? This time you get like 20, and that's great. But it does not mean that it's bullish and it's going to go break the highs. And that's a very difficult thing for me to wrap my brain around, that I can because I'm a converted swing trader to scalper, right? Converted to scalping futures. So when I think I'm getting long, my brain wants to go, it's going to go higher all day. And it is kind of tricky to like reprogram myself to start thinking about things in a much smaller time frame, which means I might not break any of these highs, probably this one, right? But that if it gets to this, I should just be getting out. So right there, I'm just exiting the trade completely. I can't seem to grab onto that. Let me just get rid of all these. We don't need them that much anyway. Okay, anyway, notice here now we're going from one side of the radar to the next. What that means is mean reversion trades are now going to start working better than momentum trades. So we're going to hold off on the heavy shorts now. And also notice in the background there's no more blue, right? When there's a blue background, I'm sorry, purple. When there's a purple background, it means that shorts are going to work better than longs, right? Doesn't mean longs aren't going to work, but shorts are going to work better than longs. They have all the momentum. And the longs, we should probably be taking profit and not holding runners. When we don't, and then when it's pink, it's the exact opposite. But when we don't have any color back there at all, it basically means we're just neutral. And then this like shitty yellow color here is the overnight range because it's shitty trading overnight. That level, the overnight low, stays very significant. And if you can get trade signals off of there like this in the direction that you want to go, you can that's a pretty good edge, right? So even it's in the upper quartile. I've got a signal that we've got trades going off here, If I want to be a little bit more specific, I could just do the same exact process again. Draw these DVPs, see where all the volume is. Volume all went off. Where are the, so here's one down here, and this one is way up here. So in this case, that's not a really good example of a high odds trade, but it probably worked. Yeah, see, it gets kind of stuck. It doesn't quite get through this volume build, right? So maybe it's not such a good trade. Here's another momentum trade, and this is exactly what happens when you try to trade momentum during balance. You get in here, it busts you and comes right back. The mean reversion trade is wait for the low to get broken and then to get an algo signal, right? So you're actually buying this, right? And where are you targeting? Always the red line or the blue line, whichever one comes first. So right there is where you're getting out. And yeah, you might have to chase it out sometimes, right? If it starts to slow down and it hasn't, like this missed your target by like 2 points. If you're trading mean reversion, you just got to get the fuck out of there. It's not like trading momentum where you can just hold for the next pullback. No, you get the fuck out, right? Mark it out. Because what's going to happen, you're going to break the low and then you're going to get long again, right? So here, this is probably still a long. The only thing that might have kept you from getting it is the fact that you didn't hit your target. And that's actually a sign that bears are taking control again. So you might buy this, and then if you did, you'd have to buy this one too. And then suddenly you realize you're actually getting chopped up, right? And this is why we often don't trade in the first hour or overnight, because this is often when you get this kind of choppy action. The other thing you can do is you can look at the higher time frame, and you can see clearly bears are still in control here. See how it's turned purple on the higher time frame? So I can extrapolate that longs on the higher time frame are probably not going to work. And therefore, as long as that's still purple, I may want to just take shorts because I'm going to get chopped up a lot of the time, right? But I just happened to miss this because I slept in, but I would have definitely taken this because I wouldn't have really known for sure that we're not going back to the top of the channel here. But yeah, and if you took this one, you'd have to take this one too. But then it blows out, and then you get this, which I probably would not have traded because I'd just kind of be giving up on the long side for the time being, right? And step away for, this is New York lunch now. So I'd probably just hold off here. And that's really not good enough when you're just going sideways. I need to break up here first before there. That is a better short. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's just really choppy. Chop, 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 chop. So here's a momentum trade that totally fails, right? And that's because we're in mean reversion. There's a momentum. That's not a perfect momentum trade. Let's keep going. Okay, a momentum trade to the upside suddenly works, right? And that is my first clue that something's up, right? Because all day, the only thing that's been working is shorts, right? Or at least since the open, right? We had that little push, and then those guys got trapped, and all of a sudden, buys weren't working, buys weren't working, buys weren't working. Then suddenly, bear reversals start to lose, and we get this guy, this aggressive trader here, gets trapped, right? Where does that happen? Right at overnight low. So once we get above him here, we should start thinking about watching that area in the future to see if bulls defend it. So we're going to mark it here. And that's what I did in real life too. So you mark that zone and you start looking for buyers to defend it, right? As soon as you see this star get beat, which happens right here, right? So you can aggressively buy that if you want, but that's not the best trade. You're better off waiting for a retest of it like this that gets bought. And you can find it on the smaller time frame too. See that? Tests, triangle down, green bar. That's a good momentum trade, right? So you can go along that, and you get a nice little push here, right? And that might be all it is. But you get to the green line, which is always your target, and you get out. Right? There's really nothing to do here. There's no triangle here for me to buy it. But now we're back into the zone again, and they are defending it, see? So if you miss this one, and you want to give it or you want to give it a second try, you could. And that one works beautifully. right? So that one works nice. So all of a sudden, even by New York lunch, we should have a sense that buyers are actually trying to hold this. They've trapped some sellers and they're trying to hold it, right? We are clearly above the wave to the low. So this is the low of the day at this point. And we are above where that wave started, which is this green line right here. We got above it and we've now established momentum above it, right? So we should no longer be shorting lows. We should be looking for pullbacks to get long on trap trades, right? So it's okay if you miss this one, but know that now that low, that the low of the day, that lowest like portion of the day, right down there is going to be where we want to start looking for longs, as long as we have a good entry. So here again, we get another momentum move, right? Purple bar, green bar, and so that can go higher. Doesn't always. This one doesn't do much. Just kind of peters out, right? I don't have a signal here to do anything. And it's starting to chop again. Purple bar star, you can buy that if you want, as long as you think you're bullish. And that one gets you 10 points, but doesn't break the red line, and we should stop buying now, right? Once you get this triangle up, orange bar with a diamond, that is a bearish momentum trade. I probably wouldn't have taken it, but when I see it hit the target and continue, right, I know that we're at least neutral. And so now I need to come back here and I need to establish underneath a low before I get long. That's the rule. And so here's a long, but I don't know if it's going to work. It does. We're neutral, right? Which means that we should have just as much chance of getting paid short. That one does not stop. See that? Our target's there on this green line. That one might stop. Okay, that if you sold this to get down here, a momentum trade took you out. Again, all of a sudden, bull trades are working and bear trades are failing. We need to be cognizant of that, and that will help us decide to take these trades, even though there's no trap here, as long as we keep getting above these stars, right? And so the hint was this very first bearish star getting trapped. And here, let me make this a different color so it's a little more obvious. And what you're going to see is they defend this over and over again. See that? That one worked. Oops. Right? That one worked. Off the green zone. And when they came back into it, they're not even reaching that overnight low, right? And they're defending it. Now they're not even reaching this low, and they're defending it, right? So these guys are clearly trapped. The low of the day appears to be in at this point, right? It's not always in, but bulls appear to have the control here. And so if we can get a long on a pullback, we should be focusing on longs at this point, right? So we get this. This one does pay out really nice. You trap another aggressive trader here, right? That guy gets trapped. So if you wanted to try to break that out, but I don't have a great signal in this time frame. No short here, no long here. Here's your first short, triangle up, diamond, right? We did move pretty far, pretty fast. So if you want to take this back to your preferred buy zone, which is green, you could short this. That's fine. So now see how we're approaching this green zone? Now we're looking for a trap back in to a low. So we want them to make a low, get underneath it, and then come back over it. That's what we want, right? So we trap this guy at the Voodoo range level, and all of a sudden I'm starting to think we might not be getting back to that green line. This is the overnight low, and I was very aware that we are holding it and testing it every time. And so now I'm starting to think if we don't get dipped back in here, I'm going to have to buy a little higher than I want to. But thankfully did not get signaled here until we got back into here, right? So because I had this area designated, I already knew that I was looking for longs here, but I needed a low to get broken, and then I needed to show some aggression. Now here you can see that this volume to the downside is significantly divergent. See that? It's way lower, right? So if this works, it's gonna explode, but it doesn't always work the first time. So you can either buy it twice, right, or you can just wait and get a pullback again. So in this case, it fails the first time, and then you get a really nice setup here, where you got under this star, and it came back and gave you another star. If you took this, you have to buy this. Have to, right? It's not going to work every time, but the fact that it's at your location where you know there's trapped sellers before, in my opinion, you can now start to hold runners on the upside, and I'm not going to be trading the downside unless I get way up here, right? I'm going to have perfect location. Now, in this case, they make it really tricky, and they come back and they potentially take you out by like a tick, which is just like dirty tricks because it's OPEX. It's option expiration, right? So if you got tagged out by one tick there and you had the location identified, like you're doing everything right. It's just an unfortunate turn of events, and you just have to be ready for the next signal, right? If you are shorting here because it's a momentum trade and I see it, you have to stop doing that, right? I know it looks bearish all of a sudden, but you need to be looking at the bigger picture and know that there are shorts trapped at the lows here. And so we do not want to be aggressively shorting into the low of the day. The low of the day is right here, right? If you're shorting this, you are expecting this low to be broken. And that is not respecting the fact that we have shorts, aggressive shorts trapped down there. If you didn't know you had aggressive shorts trapped down there, you need something like the algo. I wouldn't have known, right? But I saw them here get trapped, right? Here and here. They got trapped down there. And so once they get trapped down there, I know I can buy these, right? And I'm okay if it only 2 out of the 3 times it works. Like, I'm fine with this stop. I can take this aggressively if I want, but I have to take this one, right? And if this one doesn't work, like, I'll at least get my 10 points most of the time, but I've got to be able to get back in right here too. And again, if you didn't know to get long, the other thing you could do is you could once again draw the DVP, and you could see that that's the level that you need to get above, right here, right? That's the spot. That once you get up there, like, you better be looking for longs now, right? So any signal in here to the long side is going to get you long, and you don't want to be taking these because these short momentum moves are going to get broken a lot. There's your entry right there. Jesus, stop. That is the entry, and you got to put your stop under here. They trap you, and that's going to happen, right? That's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to get trapped, but that is a valid entry here, in my opinion. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but if you keep doing that and you've got trapped shorts, it's going to work a lot, right? So I personally traded that, and I think that makes sense. When they do get under here, right, it's a very easy thing to start to get bearish now. And it's important to realize that just because you traded under those traders does not mean that they're going to defend their position. So while I might not buy this because we've gotten underneath the zone that I wanted to, what I should be doing here, I'm just going to take off all these lines, is what I should be doing here is drawing DVPs and looking for longs off of here. So this becomes a long, right? And that becomes a long because it's interacting with this line, right? All of those are longs. And like I said, it's tough if you bought this and got stopped out like I did. It's tough to come right back and buy it again, but you really do have to, because you were right? That like the idea is valid, but especially on OPEX, they're going to steal stops sometimes. If there's enough liquidity down here and they have, like, if they're able to push it, they will. And so when that signal, you can't just get bearish right away. Thankfully, the algo never told us to get short here. It just said long, 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 right? And then this is actually a momentum trade. Orange bar, green bar, orange bar with the white. It's 2 signals at the same time saying, if you're bullish, you better fucking buy this. And it's right back at this level that I wanted to be bullish, right? So if you bought this, all this, it's like a head and shoulders, you guys, okay? And when you have the algo to confirm, it makes it a lot easier to buy that. And then all of a sudden you're off to the races. Look, this is another bullish momentum trade. It's the exact same signal here, right here, right? Same thing here. Now, you might have gotten stopped out, but if you didn't buy this, you can start trading long on the traps. So that becomes a long. That one doesn't work, but it's a good one, right? I probably skip this short because I'm thinking we're trapped down here, unless you think you just want to short to get us back here. I do not expect this low to break, right? And when they break it, like, we do have to start like considering whether or not we're right. But we got a good trade out of that, right? That's a pretty good trade. Here, this low from before, this cluster of lows right here, they once again, it's OPEX, right? They get underneath it, and then they trap back in with another bull. And that purple bar star underneath the radar, if it's bullish, is going to work a lot. How do you know it's bullish? Because you've been trapping shorts at the lows, right? So if you want to buy this, fine. If not, draw the DVP, right? If that's too aggressive, draw the DVP, put the line in, and if you get along here in that area, whoops, if you get along here in that area, like this is where I actually longed here. That becomes a very good long to hold runners with, right? You're going to get a nice push there. I don't have a short signal here, right? We didn't meet the red line. And when we did break a red line, we did not come back and hold below it. So I am not bearish. I'm looking for longs in this zone, right? So in my opinion, any of these here are good long candidates, in my opinion. All of these are good longs. Like, you might have to try twice, especially on OPEX, but these are all good longs. You're going to get 10 points off these a lot. Here's another one. Good long. Any signal from that's going to the right, the correct direction from the algo that occurred at that level that we identify with the DVP is good to go, right? Oops. And so it just keeps going and keeps going. Now we get pink bar, orange bar, right at the top of the radar, and it broke above purple and it came back in. This is a valid short if you think it is balanced. And as you can see, we're not trading above we're not holding above the radar, and that radar channel is flat. So if you want to take shorts, you could take this one, but this one's better, right? I was just skipping shorts and waiting for the longs to set up and taking the longs in this location. So I was like, long, take profits, hold a runner, get hit at this target right here, and then long, get out runners, or get out, leave runners, add back. Like, that's the way I was trading this. And then my stop stays down here under this. And I'm just treating this like a momentum trade, right? And then any triangle down followed by I'll go up, I'm just buying it. Because I have a high sense of confidence that these highs are going to eventually be broken, because momentum is clearly, we're trapping more and more shorts. Look, at every single time we do this over and over again, we have shorts hitting us at like attacking the lows. See this? This guy gets trapped. This one. This guy gets trapped. This one. Right? Those guys get trapped. And this is the big one. Star down. Star down. All we have to do is get above him. Right? If we can get above him and establish volume above him, any dip should be bought. Well, look, chop, 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 establish above him, either jump to the smaller time frame and look for an entry, or just, look for a dip at right there. Buy that for a scalp, and then if it can get back in here, you can buy and hold runners. This one's a scalp, right? I don't think it comes back. Sometimes it just doesn't come back. But I'm not shorting these at all, because look how, for the same reason I didn't long overnight, we are just grinding in the top of this channel, and shorts aren't going to work, right? So instead, you can just take profits at the red line, triangle down, algo, long, stop down here, take out profits at the red line, right? And then, yeah, you could keep going. I was out of this by here. I got out here at 11,900. I was happy once I hit this. I was good. Now I did hit my target, which was 11,915. I did not hold it long enough to get all the way to the top, but that's okay, right? This is a valid short signal, and it got really overextended on all the indicators, so you could have taken that. I did not. But that's an okay mean reversion trade. You are trying to get it back to the next green line, which is this, or the blue line here. I probably would have taken most of my profits at the midpoint. Triangle down star, if you're still bullish, which I think I am, you'd take it there, right? Here's a momentum trade, orange bar, green bar. You could scalp a trade there, right? But realize that this now is the high. We double top here. I'm probably not going to trade that unless I have a DVP. Let me see. Do I have a DVP up here? Nope, that one's down here. That one's down here. So I need the only way I could get a short is maybe this one. Oh, I actually took that. I remember, and that one didn't work. So if this one had an algo, I could take it, but it didn't have an algo, so I did not take that. So it comes back down. It still can't get in. See, these are the trap shorts. It still can't get down there, so I'm still bullish, right? And then here's your momentum entry. Triangle down, green bar, long, right? Now that area gets defended. This, along with these triangle above it, gets defended. Star, long, you're still bullish, right? As long as you're bullish, keep doing that. I'm ignoring these shorts, right? I might have bought this and gotten stopped out. That would suck. But that happens. And then here's a short that just gets chopped. See, this is like best case scenario when it's so bullish and you try to trade counter trend, you just get fucked. You know, that's like best case scenario. So just stop doing that and you're gonna save yourself a lot of trouble. But like I said, the two keys here were the trapped traders down here. Once we established above this and didn't get that rotation that we were used to, and instead held above that and started like confirming that buyers wanted this price, you have to start trading momentum. And then same exact thing happened down here, right here. Right? We trapped these guys lower, got higher. You can buy momentum trades here. It does need one more try because it's OPEX, right? But in my opinion, you can start buying momentum trades there. For the same reason that I was trading short momentum here, right? When things were cooking to the downside, pre-market, and everything was purple, right? Like I'm fine trading short anywhere up here as long as there's an algo signal. I think that's fine. Right? So hopefully that's helpful. That's the whole day. And like I said, I didn't take all of the trades I wanted to, but I had a pretty good day. So nice to see. I didn't get to trade the whole day. Don't usually get to trade Fridays, but I did today. I'll be back on Tuesday, and maybe we'll do another stream. If these are helpful, you guys, let me know. If there's something you want to learn more about, I can just do this. Let me know. But yeah, that's how I usually do my reviews for the day. I'll leave this up on YouTube for a couple days in case someone wants to watch it at like 2x